Hello, this is Yehna.
And this is Jessie.
We are excited to be back with another episode. We wrestled through many different questions and we wanted to invite you and elaborate more on the question, are we allowed to be comfortable? So welcome and join us
At
at
the
the table.
table.
That was actually so good.
I know. Yay. We did it. And it's been a while. So even
Yes,
more, go us.
go
Yeah, it's been a
us.
minute. We are talking about the question of are we allowed to be comfortable through the lens of being a missionary kid? So this is very specific, just us or other people growing up as a missionary kid. We did want to preface that this is a very touchy subject. Again, we're only going to be speaking from some parts of our lives and other experiences that we witnessed, but this doesn't kind of speak for the whole MK population. Just wanted to let you guys know that this is what we think.
And to add
So,
to that a little bit, this is
yes.
not like this concrete 100% Yenna Jesse conviction that we want to spread and propaganda. Like, it's just that we've come to this and we're like, why do we feel so uncomfortable even talking about it? And so,
Mhm.
therefore, we want to challenge ourselves to put it out there to see maybe someone else have wrestled with this tension as well. So, just want to
Mhm.
say, not 100%. These are young 20s just trying to navigate questions in our head.
For sure. So speaking of the tensions, so the thing we wanted to touch on, the three tensions that, yeah, we wanted to bring up was feeling uncomfortable at the thought of being comfortable,
Mm.
and then living in a scarcity mindset, just being in the spotlight and feeling as missionary kids, we had to present ourselves in a certain way. And so having that tension growing up and carrying that on into our adulthood. And then lastly, the whole concept of missional work and how it's supported is already such an interesting concept
Mm.
live in and have that be kind of what sustains your life. So let's start with the first one though. Why is it uncomfortable that we are comfortable? And we're not just talking like financially, we're talking like work ethic wise or in our career, how we map out
Mm.
our future. Yeah, just wanting to maybe indulge in some of what the world has to offer, or the fact that treating ourselves looks like the bare minimum for maybe another person. Why is this? Why does it not sit well with us? And
Hmm.
obviously it's the polar opposite from how we were raised, but still, why is that such an uncomfortable concept?
Hmm. Again, I don't have this solid answer, but it's just for so long, we have, at least in my personal experience of what I've witnessed, and a part of some of my experience is just kind of we have to walk this tightrope on balancing the showing of gratitude and saying, hey, we're actually doing really well here. And we are so grateful for the support. And honestly, we really are. And we've been so blessed just throughout my whole childhood and my life, even to this day, this type of support we get, not just financially, but prayer and love and just the constant encouragement. And so balancing showing that gratitude but then on the flip side, I think a lot of times to speak a little bit on the Asian American church, when we talk about mission, sometimes suffering is the first thing that pops up into a lot of people's minds. And that suffering usually can look like, starving and not doing well and, die for the Lord. And I think that's a cool concept. But then, okay, how do I show that I'm doing well and then I'm being properly cared for and given proper schooling and all of that, but then also not feeling ashamed when I was given something that may have costed a little more and just finding that balance of being a child and wanting things, but then also feeling responsible for representing well and showing honest gratitude. So I don't have an answer for that, but that was definitely an experience that I found myself and a lot of kids struggle with. Like if we got a new phone, it was almost like hush hush, or we had to over justify how we got it. It's like,
Hmm.
oh, we raised all this graduation money, and we were like, and we're so grateful, and we had to wrap it up so much to a point that it was so pretentious and didn't feel genuine. And later on, it I can see that carry on into a lot of missionary kids' adulthood. Obviously, again, I'm generalizing, but that is a narrative I have witnessed a lot of times. Yeah.
And that is, we're saying that that is carried on to adulthood, even
Hmm.
though, you know, we're not supported by other people and all that. We're supporting ourselves
Hmm.
financially, but still that mindset carries on. Even when, you know, when your coworkers ask, like, where are you going for fall break or for summer? You're like, oh, I'm traveling. And they're like, oh, you're traveling again? And you're like, oh, I use miles though. Or, oh, I'm staying with a friend, so it's not expensive.
Oh my
And you're
gosh.
still trying to justify and present yourself. Oh, no, no, no. I spend my money wisely. And
I promise I do well.
yeah, yeah.
I'm wise.
Which makes me think about even past, not even missionary kids, but pastors or
Mm,
pastors' kids. Like if they drive, people talk, like if they drive a Tesla, oh, whoa, that pastor, like why is he, you know, driving that Tesla or wearing that Rolex? Or it's just such a weird, if you're doing God's work and living a radical life, then you shouldn't be comfortable, is
yeah.
kind of the unspoken, but very,
Rule.
yeah, it's a rule that I feel like everyone kind of has in their mind. But thinking about the fact that it's uncomfortable to be comfortable, I was thinking in the flip side too, if you grow up comfortable in a well off family, I'm wondering if it's the same thing, but the opposite of, oh, it's such a weird concept to be uncomfortable and to have to budget and to have to be tight on my
Mm,
finances. I'm sure that's uncomfortable. Obviously, for us, it's easier to be more comfortable. It's easy to get used to being
yeah,
comfortable than the opposite.
true.
But I'm like, huh, I wonder if that's the case for people on the opposite end of the spectrum. I mean, but I'm sure that that's also uncomfortable to talk about because that brings about shame
It does.
to a certain aspect,
It's just
right?
like shame on both ends. And you know, you're just like, how do I even begin to touch on this? Because it just feels like we're blaming, but we're not. But we want to come to terms with how to navigate life with joy. But then we have this over blaring voice in our head is like, you're not doing enough. You're not doing enough. Or you're too comfortable. Get out of your comfort zone and, do this for Jesus. And yes, but how?
Mm. Yeah, and I like how you touched on how we feel the need to do that. And so how growing up, you know, we felt we need to present ourselves in a certain
Mm.
way. And a lot of that is that presenting looks like living in a scarcity mindset. Like what were some of the examples, Yana, that you have experienced feeling you had to be a certain way?
I mean, my job. I think when I first got my job, obviously I didn't have a concept of what a proper salary is supposed to be, which also speaks to my privilege because growing up in NK, we didn't have part-time jobs. That's not much of a thing for sure. And so my salary experience was very much at Wheaton doing part-time jobs in college. And then so when it bumps up to like a quote unquote big girl salary, it feels like a lot. But then my dad would help me break it down and he's like, what is this? And
Mm-hmm.
because he's lived as a businessman in the US, so he knows how much you need to spend to live a life that's not even comfortable, just like a life. But I always found myself thinking, no, this is proper. I should be working hard. I should be exhausted at the end of the day, mentally, physically, spiritually. Then I'm living the good life. So I worked 3 jobs and I thought I'm not allowed to complain about it. I'm not allowed to cry about it. I've got to bite my tongue and live it. And it didn't help that people are like, oh my God, your job is so admirable, special education. Whoa, whoa. Wow, the missionary kid is living a missional life. And, in some sense, I had this false sense of pride and a badge of like suffering on my shoulder. And this is the right thing. I need to work 3 jobs. And then I'm the proper missionary kid. I'm the best outcome that any missionary kid family would want. But I get to a point where I was just unhappy. And I was so
Mm.
ashamed of that and ashamed of wanting a job that paid properly. I really stopped myself from even being present in the job and the place that God placed me. So it was not fair for my students, but also just I completely lost sight of why he put me in special education in the first place. In the mindset of wanting to do what quote unquote good, I lost sight of the purpose. Even like for me right now, as I'm transitioning to doing masters, I feel so I had to wrestle with the idea of wow, people are gonna think I'm moving into a master's because I want a better job and a better paying job. And I'm like,
Mm.
it's just like, no, I don't want them to think that. I'm doing this because I want to do like, and I overly emphasize, and then it does permeate my life to this day. But just trying to hold grounds of why God is leading me through everything rather than how can I present my life to look a certain way for other people. Yeah.
I think what I'm getting from this episode and feeling convicted about is that how much we are presenting oriented, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. Like how much we care about how we are presenting ourselves and representing ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that is such a theme, and there's definitely more to unpack there for sure.
But your turn, Jessie.
Well, I was thinking about,
Mm.
because I feel like we have similar thoughts about this. I
Yeah.
have totally witnessed or heard other people that go to the other end of the spectrum of, you know what, I am not going to have my past determine who I am or how I want to live in my future. And I'm just going to settle down in one place and live a comfortable life and have like nice things and just have a white picket fence lifestyle. And that is what I want. And that is what I'll do. There's that other end of people pursuing those things. And that's what they, determine as a good life. And so that's totally fine. But it's not just one type of
Right.
thinking in one type of way that
Mm.
people process things,
Yeah.
right?
I think the outcome
Um,
definitely is different,
mhm.
but the root seems to be very rooted in a lot of fear and shame.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I
For
think the
sure.
outcome in itself is not a bad, and I don't want to ever put a bad label on any
Right.
lifestyle that people
Right.
choose.
Right.
That's the issue is that we put a label on it. It's a bad life, good life, bad life. But it's like, no, no, why did we get there?
Yeah. I think it's more about the process and like how we are understanding ourselves and our past and like how we're living it
Yeah.
out now. But for me, I think I hate to say this, but because of my scarcity mindset, I've never thought about not working. It's never an option
Mm-hmm.
for me to live at home without a job. It's never an option for me to like go home, which is totally fine if you do it. It's just, I was thinking, like, no, like, I need to stand on my 2 feet. Like, I can't be dependent on my parents. That's not a thing. They're missionaries. How could I do that to them?
Hmm.
So feeling a sense of responsibility, but that also translates to my career of it's never an option for me to not have a job and to just let myself figure things out career wise. Even if I'm still lost and don't know what I want to do for the rest of my life, I can't just take time to figure it out for myself. And
Yeah.
maybe that's because I'm just feeling this guilt of, well, if I'm not working and people ask me and I say I am not working, how does that look? Or so again, it's very image conscious, which, oh, that sucks to say out loud. The other part is just feeling the need to feel like I have to live a radical life, which
Mm,
kind of touches on our previous episode about is a 9 to 5 job enough, or
mm.
is that what we're supposed to do? Is there more to that? And so touching on that a little bit too. Uh,
Wow. I don't know. I knew when I shared this idea to Jessie, it just
mm,
flowed out of me, obviously, because Jessie, in some sense, is my safe place. I decided, but now that I'm speaking this out loud in front of the camera, it's just wow. I am seeing more and more how much of this has affected my life and a lot of my family and my friends
mm,
and people I talk to and pass by. It's lives when I mean specifically when it comes to missionary kids. I mean, um,
right.
and obviously I've also seen people who's really healed a lot from this, but it's just so crazy how we feel so ashamed to talk about our life after being a missionary kid. It's just like
Mm.
we don't realize how backtrack. Basically, what I'm trying to say is like when I was like really struggling in my job, and my mom was like, and I felt like I always had to be the one to stand up and be the better person, and not in a sense of like I'm better than you kind of better person. It's like since no one else is gonna do it, Yena, you have to do it.
Mm,
And I remember my mom saying, yes, as Christians, as Jesus followers, we need to do our best to go maybe 2 to 3 steps forward, not in success, but just in effort, in loving others and extending grace and forgiveness, but not at the expense of our joy. Because your relationship with Christ is more important than you trying to represent how good you are.
mm, facts.
And so many times you get so caught up in doing good and doing God's work that we forget altogether that God is the one who needed to be at the forefront of all of this.
Mm,
We needed to give this up for Jesus, but it's like, where is Jesus?
yeah.
If you're so unhappy, what? Question mark. Anyway, obviously that can be a whole other tangent, and there's so much to unpack with that, and there's so much that I can say and want to say. But essentially, what I want to touch on is that a lot of our thing is so my heart breaks because even for myself or Jessie, is that a lot of these things are rooted in bitterness, shame, escape, wanting to escape, or this fear that we will never measure up to the standard of what it meant to be a missionary kid and everything are what we think our parents built up, you know, or our
Mm,
church desired from us, or organization desired from us, or even to the extent of like we're not representing Christ well. Because at least for
mm,
me, I've come to a place where my relationship with Christ is healed a lot and hoping I would do better, and so getting too caught up in the quote unquote good. Eh.
I'm so glad you touched on that because that's like a great way to wrap this up. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter where you're at financially in your career, comfortable, uncomfortable, whatever. At the end of the day, are you pursuing Christ?
Hmm.
Is Christ at the center of your life? And who are we to judge what a good life or what a representing life looks like? You
Yeah.
know, at the end of the day, are you wholeheartedly loving God and loving others? And it's just so simple, yet we make it so complicated. All of these labels and weight feels so heavy.
Hmm.
And so I'm glad that we laid it out all on the table and talked through it, made some realizations, and then came to like the simple conclusion of always. I mean, I feel like we always come to that conclusion of like it's all about God, you know? So,
I'm obviously there's so many details and logistics that go through
right.
this, but as a not a because I'm not a financial therapist and I cannot give you that kind of advice. I wish I could, but it's tricky for sure. It's not black and white. There's so much that we do need to work hard for and be diligent
Mm,
but never at the expense of your
of
relationship with
relationship.
Christ.
Amen.
Because that's what I did, and what got me was a wall and a lot of sadness. So just know that that's so much more important. Yeah. This was a hefty topic. There's so many branches that could have stemmed off of this. And that's why Jessie was like, do we just free flow this? I was like, no, Yana Kim, I could talk probably for 2 hours about this topic because there's so many things that honestly breaks my heart when it comes to a topic of scarcity mindset and just, yes. Anyway, but I really hope that this opens up an avenue for you all who may have struggled with this this concept and this questioning that you are not alone. And
Mm,
also, I almost like encourage you to step out and maybe pull a friend, another missionary friend who may struggle with this. But yeah, thank you all for listening. We are on Spotify, we're on YouTube, and we're all our updates will be on Instagram. Thank you so much for listening and hope to share more on our uh, next episode. Oh my gosh. Okay. Until then. Bye.
Bye.